If we use Auckland as an example, where the maths has been done over the last 4 years, the decarbonisation across transport means we need 64% less petrol and diesel by around 2030 versus around 2020. Working that through further, it means about 80% less petrol and diesel by 2030, because it's actually gone up over the last couple of years. And what does that mean in terms of how might the landscape change and how we move around our cities? Well, that in a nutshell, we need to be moving around roughly half as much by 2030 in cars as we do today.
And there are some examples of other cities around the world which have been able to achieve such a big shift in modes of transport over quite short times.
Absolutely, and I think we're now in the landscape in many ways informed by our COVID experiences, where we know what the possible is, which we didn't maybe know 2 or 3 years ago. And there are some great examples. Paris, where they've made massive leaps and bounds by opening up corridors quickly. But the most notable recent work that's come through is from Brussels, which has seen a 40% reduction in vehicle kilometres travelled between 2019 and about now. So it's absolutely transformed that transport landscape. And one of the tools they've used to do that is to open up streets and increase the number of kilometres that people travel in bikes by about 300%.
To achieve that kind of reduction, what are some of the main elements of mode shift to help fast forward this revolution in transport?
Sure. The first thing is we need to make sure that we, in our urban landscapes, that we stop the sprawl, we build back compact. And what that means is that we need to travel less often, and when we do, we need to travel less far. So we're not driving down to the end of some distant shopping centre at the end of a motorway. We're wandering down to the shop, so we're on, a micro-mobility scooter to go and get the tomatoes that we need for dinner. When we do need to travel, we travel preferentially by walking, by cycling, by e-mobility, and then moving into public transport. And the big shift that we'll see in the public transport space over the next 8 years is not big fancy train sets, it's just more buses, more frequently, that make it easier to get around. And then whatever's left, we then need to electrify. So that's kind of the cascade of things we need to do. Travel less, travel active, travel public, and where you do need to travel in your own vehicle, travel electric. This is not just about carbon, it's actually about transforming our transport and our public space in a way that is better across all dimensions, that's safer, that's healthier, that's more accessible to a broader range of people, that's more resilient in case anything goes wrong, and by the way is also decarbonised. And it's a combination of those things. If you throw in elements of well-being, for example, as well, no one likes being stuck in traffic, that other vision and the aspiration of where we want to be. So we're not taking people's cars out of their cold dead hands. What we're doing is transforming the transport landscape in a way that is actually better for everybody. And the really exciting thing about this transformation is it's even economically better. It's economically better at a city level because we've actually already got the public spaces we need. We just need to reshuffle them, reallocate them a little bit. So we actually need less capex over the next decade than we would otherwise do in a very car-centric world.
So thank you for setting that very big picture about the opportunities here and the challenges. And now let's go down to Wynyard Quarter to see how an underused old commercial area of town is being rapidly turned into a very attractive waterfront location. Well, here we are on a very good example of a new generation of reallocating space on this street. Talk me through what we're seeing here.
So what's really exciting about the way we've transformed here is that we've set aside real estate for the particular use case in question. So we've got this big chunk of real estate on the side here for pedestrians where they can safely walk around without being bowled over by cyclists. And then you've got the cycle lanes for e-mobility and e-bike lanes where we can move lots and lots of people through, as you can see in the counter, And what that's meant is it's moved people off the streets, and it allows us to then go from 4 lanes down to 2 lanes. And whilst those lanes are still busy, it means we have a much more efficient use of space. And if you look at the numbers, we know we can move 3 to 5 times more people through a 3.5 metre carriageway on a cycle lane than we can on a car lane.
Yes, and it's great looking at the bike counter on Quay Street and seeing the numbers tick up.
Absolutely, they're impressive numbers, and they support the story that you're seeing all the way around the world, is if you put this stuff in place, people actually use it. If you put in space-safe infrastructure, people love it. The high-level thought there is we're now designing these public spaces for people rather than private motor vehicles. Now, we still allow mobility in private motor vehicles, but we extend it out to think about the human aspects, and that's where fun and play, connection with nature, connection with water really matters.
Alistair, drawing on your huge knowledge of population health, what are the benefits that are available to us all through these shifts in transportation?
Well, I think the big shifts in transport that we're going to see are terribly exciting, really, because they are bringing with them all kinds of opportunities, really, for improving well-being and improving population health. You know, cleaner cities, for example. The air pollution that comes from the transport system has been underappreciated, in my view. And reducing the amount of traffic, reducing the number of vehicles, reducing the number of journeys will make for cleaner and safer environments, reducing injury risk, making cities quieter, giving people greater opportunities to be physically active. You know, those are all quite significant benefits.
And we've had just recently the first big study, lots of analysis, lots of data on air pollution in New Zealand. What's that been telling us?
Yes, the air pollution story, the release of the latest review of health and air pollution in New Zealand, you know, indicated that maybe 3,300 deaths a year are related to air pollution, and 2/3 of those are due to car pollution. That's not something that was so apparent previously, but because we've now got good measures of nitrogen dioxide pollution, which is almost exclusively from motor vehicles in New Zealand, particularly diesels, you know, we now have a good handle on just the real size of the burden of air pollution due to our transport system, and it is huge.
So even though we have largely coastal cities, as we have here in Auckland, and strong winds, that hasn't saved us.
No, and New Zealand has lived by that sort of comfort, I guess, that we're a small country, we're a long way from, you know, big manufacturing sources, but in fact we are heavily motorised and very car dependent. 4.5 million cars or thereabouts, you know, in New Zealand, or vehicles in New Zealand. And particularly in the big cities, the levels of pollution are relatively high. I think we need to move on a number of fronts at the same time to ensure that people have choices, to ensure that people see and experience the benefits of a quieter, less car-dominated city, and at the same time gain the longer-term benefits that are not so visible in terms of reducing our emissions.
Are there some additional positive ways to be able to encourage people to sort of get on board with these changes?
I think giving people an opportunity to experience them, to experience alternatives. You know, that's one thing I think the electric bike offers, that here's a technology, when people get a chance to try it, they experience a different kind of city to the one that they see and experience from behind a steering wheel. So the trick is finding ways of giving more people more opportunities to explore a variety of ways of getting around.